This is Hit Publish, the first podcast dedicated to uncovering rogue businesses secretly navigating the ever-changing digital landscape. Each episode, we'll play host to leaders in their fields discussing their adoption of the latest digital trends and related technologies, addressing the total effects on the way we market businesses and brands across all of our industries. And occasionally, we'll pay homage to the technology giants who dictate our online lives and the platforms they provide, reminding ourselves of the self-inflicted and inevitable misuse of personal data. So if this all sounds good to you, skip the terms and conditions, ignore the privacy policy, and hit subscribe. On this episode of Hit Publish.
Google has never once changed any key rule at all. The core algorithms that they've got just get more intelligent. So if you game the system and you try all these black hat techniques, or as they're referred to, and you try and cheat it, you're going to get caught out eventually.
But as far as what content I've put on social media is concerned, Google's like...
I would have thought that would have been null and void to all intents and purposes. We've got 10,000 people engaging with the site. Why have only 20 of them took the deal? Why haven't we got 200? So let's see about, okay, let's track the journey, let's track the pages. But if you're going to do proper SEO and you want to get out there, you need to be attaching yourselves to more credible sites.
On this first of a two-part episode, we talked with Alan from Digitel and our very own resident search expert, Chris, about all things SEO. As an industry in itself, there's lots of topics to cover, so we wanted to split it over a couple of episodes. Nettl and Digitel are two companies, both experts in the search engine optimization arena, with different specialists that work well together in getting your website further up the Google rankings.
We covered the basic principles behind SEO before having a real in-depth discussion on link building and the relevance of SEO for startups and small businesses, particularly when compared to all the platforms available to them. Alan and Chris also gave us the top 3 things you don't want to do when optimizing for search.
We covered our usual news updates, there are some takeaway top tips, and lastly, a reminder to kindly subscribe to Hit Publish, your digital marketing, online advertising and technology-inspired podcast. All the show notes, links and other episodes can be found online at hitpublish.digital.
All right.
Howdy.
Another episode of Hit Publish. Thank you for joining us. This is episode 9.
Blimey.
So we decided we'd do 10 episodes per season. I don't know if there's like a rule for that.
I think 10's a good number.
10's a good number. And then we'll do sort of like a bonus episode where we'll sort of go over what the guests that we had on previously and talk about what we've learned. We've got loads of questions that people fired in, and perhaps we'll answer some of those questions as well.
Get some of those, yeah, absolutely.
That's it. We're joined by Alan from Digitel. Hi, Alan.
Good morning, Ian. How are you?
I'm very well. Thanks for joining us. So,
My pleasure.
Today's episode is all about SEO, or search engine optimization. So I know there's going to be a lot of listeners out there that know lots of stuff about that and are going to have lots of opinions, as we all are in this room too. Yeah, definitely. And there's people out there that perhaps don't know anything about SEO and can take some top tips away of how they can help sort of increase their visibility of their website and their brand. So that's what we're going to cover today. So I'm going to jump straight in. Actually, I should say as well that this is a little bit of you, isn't it, Chris?
I'm a little bit sort of hunter turning hunted on this one, I think, aren't I? Yeah, because we dabble. I work with Alan on some projects and we do SEO ourselves, sort of thing. So yeah.
That's it. So I think I'm going to sort of fire these questions to perhaps both of you, and you can both give your opinion, have a row, and then we'll move on from there.
We'll try and play nicely.
I was going to say, I don't think you dabble, do you? I think you're a bit more than that.
Well, okay. Have a little play. Yeah.
Okay, let's get on with it. Well, straight away, for those, I don't want to insult people's intelligence that know all about SEO, but for those that don't, can you explain to us, Alan, what SEO actually is?
Yeah, so I think the first thing to do when you explain to someone that doesn't know is don't call it search engine optimization, because then you get even more questions and people are really perplexed. Simply put, search engine optimization is being found online, main search engines like Google, and predominantly underneath the paid adverts. So search engine optimization, climbing to the top of people like Google, really. That's what I would say.
Yeah, getting up in Google, absolutely. And I also sort of explain it as well that it kind of falls into 2 main categories, I think. The first element is to do with like relevance of the website itself, the content of the website. Is it useful to the user? Is it useful to Google? And then secondly, sort of authority. So how does Google then view your site's compared to others out there in your competition?
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about reviewing sites and competition, there are several metrics out there that people refer to. One of them is trust flow. So I suppose the best way to consider your digital trust flow would be like the expression who you hang with. So if you're in a room full of really credible people and they're all vouching for you, that's kind of like a digital association, really. So if you've got lots of really strong, really credible sites out there that all vouch for you, then your offline presence obviously becomes a lot more stronger by default, in effect. And Chris, yeah, like you said about the on-page, if your website is optimized, good experience, they're the main factors. Although Google does update them, I think user experience is probably key right now.
Yeah.
That brings me on nicely, actually, because sort of a question that we all hit in this room without a shadow of a doubt is when we launch a new brand or we launch a new website or we push it live, whatever the right terminology is, usually the first question always is, yeah, you know what's coming. Well, why am I not on the top of page one on Google and Bing and all the other search engines? Why can't I be seen? Alan, can you tell us why that is?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, so if we're talking in regards to a brand new website and a brand new domain, so, they've never existed before, they haven't just had a reskin of a site, they don't exist, do they? So would Google, being a credible search engine, or any other ones like Bing or what have you, would they take a punt on a website that's never existed before and just go, your website looks really nice, I'll put you to the top? Isn't it pretty?
I always push, when I ask the question, I always push back in the nicest possible way and say, well, I think the question we should ask is, why should you be on the top of page one in Google?
I mean, you would struggle to get any website to the top of Google relatively quickly if it's a new brand. I mean, the only way that it might get there is if the competition is really, really thin, or you go for what we call a long tail keyword. Okay. So if I was looking for, I don't know, a pair of shoes. So if I was to write size 12 black brogues with sketched spider on the front or something, and you have a dedicated page, I think you'd find it. But if you just wrote shoes in, why on earth would Google put a brand new boy on the block
versus all the other existing stuff?
Exactly that.
And I think I might throw in a top tip maybe at this point. It's something, and again, you can tell me whether you think this is a good idea or not. But what we often say to our clients when we're building a website is, because you know what web projects are like, they can go on, and you can take months sort of putting a website together and getting it launched. To start that clock ticking of getting found in Google, it's good to sort of get something up, even if it's like a holding page or something there live on the domain name to start that sort of domain authority clock ticking.
This is why I said you don't dabble, Chris, because that's a good bit of advice.
Thank you very much.
So if you put a holding page up, you've got a domain name then. So as you're doing the build, you can start directing traffic to it. So often you find website under maintenance, new site coming soon. If Google can start to see rumorings and things going on in the background before it even goes live or before you fully get it up and running, you've already brought the process forward. So a decent wireframe would always help with that, which is, again, something you're very, very good at.
Nice.
So you just mentioned domain authority there, Alan. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, what that is and what that means?
Of course. So domain authority is not as complex as it would be made out to be. So if you go online, look at any independent tool like Miles or any of the other ones, it breaks it down simply into three categories. How old is a website? How big is a website? And how popular it is. So when you look at the size of a website, obviously the deeper the page is, the more relevant, the better they should convert, i.e. why Google wants them to be done and other search. Popularity, that's all about when people land on the site. How do they engage with it? What sessions do they do? How long do they engage with individual pages? But the other angle of popularity, which often gets neglected, is actually the links that come in. So again, when you're talking about a credible relationship, your popularity, again, is based on like the whole A group at school. So if you hang around with all of the bad kids, the teacher's going to look at you a bit more. The other one that no one can control is the age. So we haven't got a TARDIS. Although we're techie, we haven't created a time machine yet. So the only thing that you can't do with that one is obviously enhance its age. However, what some people do, clever clogs out there sometimes, they'll actually buy old domain names that have been around forever and a day that have expired. And they'll actually buy those from, bidding auction sites. So they've already got some age behind them.
Would that be considered a bit black hat?
It wouldn't be considered black hat, but to be honest, it's probably a bit old school. So I think nowadays, the whole buy a domain with the exact term within it or anything like that is probably a bit old school.
Yeah.
It goes back to user experience again, hence why popularity is key, age and size.
I think that rings true across the board with SEO, is that ultimately playing by the rules and delivering to the user as opposed to delivering just to achieve results within search is going to do you better long term anyway.
Do you know, can I chuck a little top tip in, if I may?
Yeah.
So what I would say is everybody always goes, Google changed the rules. Everybody does. They don't. They never have. Google has never once changed any key rule at all. The core algorithms that they've got just get more intelligent. So if you game the system and you try all these black hat techniques, or as they're referred to, and you try and cheat it, you're going to get caught out eventually. So ultimately, just do it right from the beginning. If it looks too good to be true, it's too good, you're going to get hit, you're going to get taken down. Just create a brand that represents who you are and do it properly.
Ian, scrub out that question you were going to ask about Google keep changing its algorithms. But I think that they do obviously release lots of updates. Google does its various animal named updates, but I think, as you said, they're almost just getting a bit cleverer each time, and they're kind of finding ways to keep you. To suss out more of these dodgy around the edge techniques.
I mean, they say that they've got these core algorithmic updates that go on, you talk about penguin or panda or pigeon or there's a cuddly, fluffy animals out there. But they don't just do that. They update almost daily. There's hundreds or thousands of minor updates, but there are only a few key ones, and, you just got to keep within them and ultimately
stick to the rules. Here's one. Search engine optimization, search engine advertising, or social media advertising. And I think the question here really is what comes first and what's the best option. And I think more specifically to either startups or small businesses.
Chris, you want me to jump in on that one? Do you want to take the reins?
Go on in.
All right then. So you're a typical, service-led business. You're a solicitor, you're a doctor, you're a dentist, something like that. You've got a few key search terms you need to go for, and often they're quite expensive in regards to paying for the traffic, i.e. paid traffic or SEA as you referred to it. What I think you need to do is think about the type of industry that you're in. So if you're in e-commerce, you sell trainers, shoes, TVs, socks, hats, whatever you've got a multitude of different products, often on a website where there's little or no room for content. So that's probably a good position to buy different traffic, which is where you would refer to shopping or pay-per-click advertising or remarketing and all these different terminology that you have. But if you're in a small business where you have a finite amount of service-led offerings rather than product, you'd often find that SEO, where you climb naturally for the given terms with lots of high traffic value, are better. So if you imagine selling, again, the shoe analogy, there are probably only a finite amount of people that want a specific type of shoe. Whereas if you're a doctor or you're a dentist or you're a solicitor, the services that you provide are going to be a lot higher traffic. So they should be the ones you focus on organically. Social media, I think everyone should do social media. I think whatever business you're in, I think social activity is the way forward. I think it complements more of a branding exposure than it does perhaps lead to direct sales. But again, I personally think it depends on the industry. But in my opinion, the campaigns that do the best tend to do all three.
I think, is it fair to say that especially as a startup, you need to be out the gates, hit the ground running,
do everything at once?
And search engine optimization is something that takes time. It's not something that happens immediately. So would it be fair to say that maybe a good strategy might be to run ads to get that immediate hit, and then slowly behind the scenes work on the search engine optimization?
Yeah, I mean, if you're completely new to all advertising, your domain's brand new, you're the new kid on the block, you're almost kind of forced to leave SEO for the time being, because SEO is 6 months, 9 months, 12 months down the line for a given decent term. So as a normal business that's a startup, you need cash flow there and then. You're almost catch 22. You need to invest maybe money you don't have to get it back quicker. So I would say advertising and definitely social media. But again, just talking social media, you've got organic or you've got a paid equivalent of that as well. So again, you talk about Google and algorithmic patterns and paid this and paid that. Well, the only way to get a decent Facebook really is to do a proper paid campaign. And again, that's an expenditure. But truth be told, I would say startups, not really much choice if they want to advertise Google AdWords and social media.
That's it. Yeah. Like I said, to hit the ground running, the only way you can guarantee to be top of Google, from day two after your website's gone live, is to do paid. Obviously.
Sure.
I'd say kind of back up what Alan said, but also it's good to pay attention to SEO, when you're creating your site and getting it live, so that the right foundations are in place, so that when you're kind of ticked along and you've passed whatever the magic age is to start getting found more, the right foundations are in place. As you said, ideally, if you've got budget, you're doing some paid ads immediately. when you're working away on some SEO techniques in the background, and then, you know, over time, hopefully your natural organic listings can come up and overtake, well, not overtake your ads, but, you know, they can work with your ads. And
complement them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always say as well, there's a great relationship between the two in terms of either Google Ads and the SEO. In terms of if you're doing all the right stuff from an SEO perspective, if you're optimizing your site correctly, that all brings down the cost per click of your ads as well, because it's kind of.
Yeah, I mean, Chris, you're referring to quality score there, aren't you? So
yes.
The better the advert, the better the site, the cheaper the cost.
That needs some explanation, Alan. Come on. What is quality score?
So quality score ranges between 0 and 10. The better the advert, the better the website, the more engaging it is. Not only will it be cheaper, but it will have a higher visibility online. So you'll probably find you'll be at the top of the paid adverts rather than at the bottom.
Yeah.
I think the main thing to consider as well is if you're doing paid advertising, rather than most businesses at the start that need every penny, is I would say good advice is keep 10% back. Keep that 10% back for money you've gained from your advertising to push into the SEO, because ultimately that is your long-term goal. A bit like renting versus buying a house, really. I mean, not like I should practice what I preach because I rent, but ultimately, if you buy a property, you're going to end up with a better position than if you rent one. So if you imagine, SEO is kind of you're saving up for the mortgage and you end up with a golden ticket.
Yeah.
Renting, you get all the benefits now, but ultimately you end up with not a lot at the end.
Nice analogy. I like that.
Yeah.
But,
thank you.
So rent somewhere slightly cheaper so you can
Hold a bit
afford
back.
to get your deposit together. So,
Or live at your parents.
oh yeah. I don't know how you do that in a website world.
We were talking actually just before you arrived. So the complete flip of that might be that for bigger brands, we mentioned ASOS, for example, that for them, a brand like that, it's almost not worth them putting effort into SEO and putting all their effort into paid advertisement, because actually the brand being what it is will naturally and organically do very well through SEO anyway.
You've touched on a good subject there. So due to NDAs and whatnot, I probably can't comment on ASOS. But you'll find that bigger businesses like that, they actually do still put money into SEO, but they do slightly differently. So with a typical SEO campaign, you tend to do what's called backlinking. You'll write content, you'll exchange that out through, a blogger outreach scheme where you write for a specific website in exchange for a link. Mm-hmm. What bigger brands tend to do is they'll still do that same process. Within that exchange content, however, they won't bother with the link. So it's more about brand. So they'll still use the SEO mentality, but they'll just omit the brand, because we talked about trust flow earlier, which is the legitimacy of a website's association, who you are, who you hang with expression. But there's another factor, which is kind of its twin, called citation flow. And that represents the quality of content that's out there. So if you've got lots of juicy content out there, you don't necessarily need it for SEO, but it's still good for brand.
Yeah.
There was an update also not that long ago, or a lot of rumorings in the underground, as it were, that Chris, you mentioned a comment about advertising, pay-per-click and SEO being a good thing. It is also because there's now an unofficial kind of rule that more direct traffic back to your site from other sources can actually have a good impact on the SEO as well. So even if you're not ranking for any terms, even if you're not doing any SEO, if you bring a wealth of new traffic in, it can actually affect the popularity score, and it can drive you up that way as well. So they're very much best friends, I think.
Yeah, there's always been a suspicion or whatever of does doing AdWords help with your natural listings? And I guess I don't know, we can't really answer that. But if you take the two instances of website A and website B, if both identical, if one has got, like I said, thousands of traffic to it versus whether that's through paid ads or whatever, and the other one hasn't got any traffic, then Google's going to prefer that one with more traffic.
Of course,
it's going to see it as a busy thing. So even if it's just from that point of view, I just want to what you mentioned there, talking about the difference of SEO for large brands. I wonder if we spoke on a previous episode with Rich from Radioactive PR, and that that was an interesting. I've seen some other stuff that he's done. He talked since about how close PR and SEO can be, really.
Yeah, I mean, obviously knowing Rich, I know he's a very clever chap, and I think he's got a lot of things that go for him. What I would say is there are some direct links there. The one thing to remember is, especially with PR, you tend to go on editorial sites, so newspapers, publications, like the Metro or the Telegraph or something like that. Another sort of equivalent would be LinkedIn or Facebook, something to those sites. These are sites that show your brand, show stories, show news, but don't offer what's called a follow link most of the time. So if you imagine, again, you want to go out for SEO, you want to hit these big sites too. You want to be on the Metro, the Telegraph, but you need to give them something in exchange. So you tend to offer them high-end content, and obviously they get you on there. Whereas more PR, you tend to end up on the higher sites, but for a sort of a finite amount of time. So it's a different kind of edge on it. PR, high-end PR, there's definitely value in that, 100%. And at least having listened to Rich's podcast, I could see some amazing stats there. What I would say is that, again, they complement each other, but they're not mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
I think we touched on sort of social just a moment ago and the effects that has on SEO. I'd like to talk a bit more about that. We know that Google, other search engines are available, of course,
but they're not used.
We know that search engines don't sort of index social media posts as such, but we know that driving traffic from the links as well within social are considered no follow links, as you mentioned. So I guess the only benefit of social media from an SEO perspective is driving traffic.
Yeah, I mean, it drives traffic through popularity.
Yeah.
So more people that engage, the more page views, the more page sessions, the better, really. And also, there is an element where social media can help SEO. So take an e-commerce site, again, like we said earlier. They don't often have many pages on a retail site where lots of content can be shown. So a typical strategy that most e-commerce sites tend to take over on is they'll create a blog page. They'll have a blog then with all different manner of terms on there, and they'll hyperlink from the blog itself to a dedicated product page back. So if you've got social media, which is all driving people to a really decent blog on your site, I don't know, the benefits of your health when it comes to looking after your feet or something, and then that links to shoes, then obviously Google's going to see that as a really powerful internal link.
Yeah.
So again, it's a blended approach. All three of these things in an ideal campaign, if you've got the investment there, I'd say you're better off doing a little bit less on each one and doing all three than perhaps going hardcore on one or the other.
Yeah. Does what you publish on SEO, does what you publish on social media have a direct effect on SEO? So by that, I mean the actual content.
Well, again, you've got to, Google's obviously reads everything,
Well, does it read social media posts?
Well, technically, I mean, if it's on the internet and you can navigate to it, there must be some kind of footprint, whether it's official or not. But ultimately, if you're writing a decent, the benefits of doing a podcast and that lands on your podcast page, ultimately there's a paper trail that can follow it through.
Sure.
So whether it accredits it from a link juice perspective and gives power from it that way, or whether it can just see a directional post towards a specific page, I think whether or not Google can see it or not, if it's best practice to do that, and ultimately it's an intelligent program, I think we should, again, just don't cut corners, best practice.
Indeed. Anything to say on that, Chris?
No, it's just interesting what I was saying about that citation flow, that citation score thing, which is basically saying it doesn't matter if there's 100 articles out there about why you should do a podcast or whatever, even if they're not linking back, if they mention hit publish, but they're not linking back to us, that could still do some good in terms of.
Well, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Well, you're drawing digital attention. So whether or not you land on it or not, or whether or not your neighbor does, someone's going to land on that site. Google's going to see there's a footprint, and it's going to see that you're promoting your brand. It's a bit like old school. I mean, we talk. But
that sounds like it ignores everything at first until that traffic and that footprint has happened. So I publish something to social media, whatever. I publish nothing but one word and a link. Google ignores that as one word, but follows the link, or doesn't follow it in that case, but sees the traffic from that link. Is that fair to say?
I'm not sure if I'm stumped on that one. I think ultimately go back again. If you had a social media account and you wrote one word with one link, does it sound like that would be a good practical approach?
No, of course not. No, but I'm talking it from a technical perspective as far as what Google is seeing. Obviously, it's not good to do that, of course, and it's always good to play by the rules and produce good content that encourages good engagement. But the sensible stuff aside, technically what's going on behind the scenes, Google doesn't see a social media post or index a social media. Because if it did, can you imagine? You
It's
type
well,
anything,
crazy.
Google would just be filled with social media posts. So it doesn't look at that side of it. But what it definitely does see is a link that's clicked on, and someone lands on that website and sees that bit of traffic.
Yes.
And that's come from Facebook.
Yes. And then obviously that's reported in analytics, isn't
Indeed,
it?
yeah.
So it does define, which channel and where it's come from.
But as far as what content I've put on social media is concerned, Google's like...
I would have thought that would have been null and void
Yeah.
to all intents and purposes. As you guys rightly said, that search engines would be full of
Rubbish.
all manner of...
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll say rubbish.
Other words are available.
Indeed. We talk a lot here, especially because of what Sam does in our business. We talk a lot here about social media, social ads, and the part that plays in our world today. We know that social, Facebook particularly, Instagram, etc., is becoming more and more of a platform in itself for businesses to advertise products, purchase through them now soon, so on and so forth. So taking more and more emphasis away from web. So especially for the likes of small business and startups, there's an element to say, well, do I have a website?
If I can do everything on Facebook, if I can have my brand presence and transact and talk to my customers all through Facebook or Instagram, for example, what's the point in me spending all this time and effort building SEO to a website?
Yeah. So I guess the question, why should businesses spend resources on SEO when they have platforms like that? What's the benefit of them being together?
Okay, I mean, I would simply put this another way. Yes, obviously social media is great and more platforms are making it a one-stop shop. But ultimately, you've got to think about your target audience. So you, I, and the girl next door might all want to go on Instagram or Pinterest or Facebook or Twitter or whatever you want to do. But ultimately, with their mother, with their daughter, with their sister, with their brother. And I think we're not at the point yet where social media is still the driving force. 85% of all search is made via Google. We laughed earlier about all the other search engines are, they're sort of following their tail between their legs a little bit. Bing is more in line with Google now.
Yeah.
They used to be, I mean, obviously my own opinion, I don't hold me to this Bing, but I would have said they were sort of at one point mutual enemies and that they sort of each wanted their own share of it. And I think Bing's kind of fallen in line now with Google because the algorithms are that much more intelligent.
Yeah.
You look at Facebook that, we talked about paid Facebook advertising. You could argue their algorithm is even more advanced than Google's. A lot of people would speculate that Facebook probably understand more than Google now do. So, I think there's a place for everything.
That being said, Zuckerberg, there are some leaked emails of him actually admitting that Facebook's search algorithm is actually pretty bad. So as a place to go and actually look for a service, they are aware that they lag well behind Google on that
and
front.
I think that backs up why you should still stick with Google.
and again, I look at it as well, that if you're looking for whatever crazy pair of shoes we were talking about earlier, if you want to find whatever it is that you want, you're going to go to Google and you're going to search for that item sort of thing.
So it's a case of the behavior existing within users.
I think that's where you'll go to search for something specific. I think people hang out on Facebook, of course, they're scrolling through their feed, but you wouldn't. Like I said, if you're looking for a particular something and you think of it when you're on social media, I kind of tend to come out of there. And
but
go
the
and search
argument
for it.
is that yes, they'll search for it within Google first.
Yeah.
Then they'll find it and transact through the social platform.
A lot of the time, they actually go from search to social to actually find out a bit more context, a bit more information about the service.
Yeah.
But some of those sort of first results in Google or whatever aren't going to be like like Sam's Facebook page selling his shoes. They're going to probably be Alan's website selling the shoes.
Only if you had a website. So the question I'm asking is don't have a website, let your Facebook or Instagram page appear within the search results and let the social platform handle it from there.
I personally don't think that's the way to go. I don't think unless everybody in the whole world got rid of their websites.
I'm not saying it is the right way to go, but if you're a startup business, limited budget, is there an element to say, well, actually, I could probably do just as well, if not better, from just having a really good optimized
From
Facebook
nothing.
page, and pay nothing for it, because actually, I'll rank immediately within search results with my Facebook page. and I can make purchases.
Can you get your Facebook page ranking well in
I was
search?
just going to say, actually, they will do really well
Yeah.
within a half a mile proximity. So good
indeed.
on them.
And and again, the social media is unrivaled in terms of, like I said, you can target the kind of audience of people that you're looking for. I want to look for people that visit shoe Facebook pages or whatever, and I can kind of pester them with my ads. But in terms of when someone's at that point of sale of wanting to search for what they want, and that's when you kind of need your website to go, hey, you can buy it through here.
Yeah. There is an element as well, I think, of brand experience. So if you're a bit more of an established brand, there's a likely chance that you actually don't want people to experience your brand through social, because the brand experience can be a lot better on a website where it's branded better and
clever call to action.
And lots of interactivity and engagement is a lot better. So there is that element as well, I think, of bigger brands, definitely. I've said it before, the chances of someone buying a Tesla through Instagram is highly unlikely in comparison to them going to the website where you can build it and order it. Yeah, exactly. So I think, brand experience is a big part of it as well.
But on social, Tesla can have a great looking social presence and be pestering, in people's feed of the people that have been looking at Tesla's website, all those sorts of things. So but again, I think they all play nicely together.
On a weird one, Tesla don't do any paid advertising at all. Like they've never done that, and Elon said that they never will. So, I mean, for them, at least, they're not actually taking advantage of those platforms. They do post organically, as we all know, but they don't do any paid advertising whatsoever.
And also, do they need to think about what they charge?
It's true, but then you could say that about Coca-Cola. Everybody knows what Coca-Cola is, but they spend stupid amounts of money on ads.
Apple spent more than anyone in the world on ads.
So it is an odd decision to make that, actually. There must be some kind of behind the scenes. Perhaps he doesn't like Zuckerberg or something. Okay, so moving on. How do you, as a business, Alan, how do you measure the success of SEO? So when your clients come to you and said, I've spent X amount with you this month, what have you done? Show me. How do you
show
measure
the money?
Yeah.
So when you talk about SEO again and how you measure success, I think you also have to measure output, and you have to measure, actually what you do. So again, depending on what business you are, what sector you're in, the need for SEO might be different to another one. So the way that we would measure work is we would productize it. So primarily, when you talk about SEO, say, oh, what are you going to do for me this month? And instantly, because it's not an actual product, you instantly think, how many hours they spend in? Are they up till 11 at night, busy badgering away? Or actually not. If it's a streamlined process, and you have automation like you would with any other business. So once the campaign is set up and you've got a process in place, the way to actually measure success, quite simply, ultimately, is sales. And if you back work it and you're not in it for a product, or you don't care about sales and it's more about engagement of visitors, traffic. The one that everyone always talks about, and you think, why, is rankings. At the end of the day, all right, it's great for the first 6 months of the journey. If you come to me as a new business, like our guy that relies on Facebook around his little local area with his mates, if he comes to us and he says, I really want to get up there for Disco Hire Gloucester. All right, okay, If you're position 100 and the next month you're 80, then you're 60, then you're 40, then you're 20, then you're 10, then you're 5, then you're 3, then you're 1.
The trajectory.
You can see, exactly. Right. You can see the path to success.
Yeah.
But ultimately, for those first 6 months, what's he actually made from it, apart from a pretty little report that says he's climbed up 20 positions?
Yeah.
So the only way that you can really do it is to backwork it. Again, talking about Google being friends organically with the paid traffic, use the paid traffic search tool to identify decent keyword research.
Yeah.
Find traffic that not only is a high traffic, but actually has a decent click-through, decent cost. No one's going to pay on advertising £20 a click if it doesn't convert.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a balancing act. Find a set of terms that have decent traffic and convert at a good price and organically hit them. So the way that I would judge success, always put search console in to make sure there's no problems with the site, and then put its twin in there, Google Analytics, check the traffic, check where it's coming from, see how many sales they've made, and ultimately make them more. The second stage to SEO success is not just the traffic. Well, you mentioned rightly earlier, Ian, about the user experience and would we take them away from social to the site? Well, let's look at CRO, conversion rate optimization. We've got 10,000 people engaging with the site. Why have only 20 of them took the deal? Why haven't we got 200? So let's see let's track the journey. Let's track the pages. Again, goes back to popularity. If they're bouncing off the site, the domain authority is lower. So SEO is not 2-dimensional. It's 10-dimensional. It's 20-dimensional.
Yeah, it's
so many dimensions. You've got no, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and there's so many variables that dictate the results. It's a tough job to track that. Yeah.
So the easiest way to track it, analytics, and ultimately their bank balance. Have they made lots of money? Are we making them more than they're putting in?
Yeah.
And if you're in e-commerce, you always hear the, CTA, how much am I making? What have I got back for it? So e-commerce traditionally, £3.50 seems to be quite good for fashion, especially.
What about sort of stalemate when you get to a point where actually we're top of page one now for the key phrases we want to be found for, and sales have sort of just plateaued. Where do you go from there from an SEO perspective?
Okay, so if this is a really interesting conversation I actually had with someone a couple of weeks ago, actually. So I feel like I might have a ready-made Blue Peter answer for this.
Good, go.
You get to the top of Google, you make, let's not say plateau, let's just say they're just not climbing anymore and there's no sight of any more room.
Yeah.
Ultimately, if you're at the top of Google, are you then going to stop the SEO because you're at the top, or are you going to be keeping it exactly the same because you're making the sales that you want to get? So from an SEO perspective, you can do two things. One, before you get to the point of plateauing or stopping or stagnating or whatever you want to call it, you should already have another set of terms ready to go. Mm-hmm. And again, that comes back to what Chris mentioned earlier about site structure, making sure there are lots of deep, key, rich pages to draw more traffic to.
Yeah.
So ultimately, you get to the top of Google, well, happy days all around, really. So we're not going to stop. We'll maintain that. And I think if you think of a celebrity, so I personally have a bit of a thing for Mariah Carey.
Fair enough.
Standard, yeah.
She's performing New York Times Square, New Year's Eve. She's doing the countdown. If suddenly she stopped being in the limelight for 10 years, I doubt it, but she might end up at Butlins on a stupid weekend or something. So ultimately, you need to keep consistency going.
Yeah.
So if you just stop, one of Google's main things is keep consistency, keep fresh content running through. So if you're at the top of Google and you've got the most you can get, well, brilliant, job's done. Let's keep it there, whilst also looking for another revenue channel.
Anything to add to that, Chris?
Well, yeah, not really, but just that, like you said, and once you get to the top, you're then the head above the parapet that other people are wanting to catch. So if you just put down tools and go, sit back, feet up, we're done now, then yeah, you're gonna soon slide downwards, really. So yeah, like I said, broad, keep doing the good stuff and expand out the keywords that you're using, really. And there was a top tip Alan put in there as well, really, about using the keyword analyzer tool of sort of Google AdWords to kind of look at the search terms that are kind of being most searched for, and ideally you're looking for some keyword phrases that are getting high traffic but not as high competition, sort of thing. And there's some good
Do you know, not to bore you guys with stats, but to jump on that in a bit more detail, actually, Google takes, let's say, 85% of the lion's share of all organic search engine traffic.
Yeah.
Click-through rate, so the amount of people that see your listing and click through, about, give or take, independent surveys will be a couple of percent either way, I'm sure. 40% will click through number one, 15 to 2, then 8, then 5, then 4. If you think about that, 40% for position 1, 4% for position 5. That's a huge difference.
Yeah.
Now, if you think the next stage is 2% of all web visitors actually convert, the difference between just a few positions could make or break your digital presence. So if you are at the top, as you said there earlier,
you really want to stay
there.
You
really want to stay there.
Yeah.
As Chris pointed out, everyone below you will want your position.
They'll be fighting for it.
So actually, you might even argue you'd fight harder.
So it becomes about maintenance ultimately to stay exactly where you are.
Yeah.
So it's interesting what you just said there. Actually, I mean, it always used to be, and obviously still is, top of page one on Google is where you want to be because that's what gets the most traffic. But I think from a user perspective, when I'm researching for a particular service or a particular product, I don't know about you, but me personally, I open up tabs of position 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I sack off the rest and just focus on the top 5 positions to see.
Yes.
So would you say that's pretty typical? That's fair enough for a user?
Yeah, I would. I would say more so if you're looking for information. I mean, I did it the other night. I was looking about something for analytics. I was thinking, I wonder if I can get another opinion on that. I think I opened about 8.
Yeah.
And I think it was and there wasn't any rhyme or reason to which one was better. They just were all pretty good. But I think if you flip it the other way and we talk about a Tesla,
Yeah.
or we look at a bottle of Coke, or we look at a pair of shoes again, ultimately, if you land on the right page, there's a good deal, is exactly what you want, the experience is good, and it's a brand you know, you're
just
probably
gonna
not
do it.
going to bother going to
Yeah.
number 2. We're all getting lazier. We all want information now,
Immediately, yeah.
you know, and I think...
And importantly, that is all part of search engine optimization, as we talked
Exactly.
about. Like, you know, it's not just about getting found there; it's converting that traffic when you get in the visitors to your site, and yeah, making sure that it's all the seamless process.
And that's where how good your website comes into play, and how well it's optimized, and how well it converts.
Absolutely.
That's another episode, but we'll talk about that another time. Should we do some news?
Let's do some news.
Let's do some news. 5 minutes on the clock.
3, 2, 1.
Go. This is relevant, actually. Alan might be interested to hear this. Google plans to give slow websites a new badge of shame through the
Good.
Google Chrome browser. Yeah.
Good.
Nice. Yeah,
So
yeah.
I don't know if they're testing this already, but it's been seen in the wild by someone. Hence, we've got hold of it. But so basically, what it will do is it'll put a little badge in like a
Preloading.
corner, in the corner. Yeah, it'll only happen on the Chrome browser, of course, but a badge in the corner. I think it's like a traffic light signal, isn't it?
Yeah, and there's like a loading screen as well. And
Oh, loading screen as
Yeah,
well.
and
Okay.
it's like basically red, red or green.
Yeah.
And it's basically going to warn users that, hey, this website is really, really slow. It might take a second or two.
Yeah.
But
So
go on.
that'll be an interesting one, because especially for those that build websites, we build websites, and now in front of all of our clients, it's going to either go rubbish or fine. And there's going to be lots of phone calls and optimization to happen. Maybe I think it's fair to say we use GT metrics, right?
Yep,
I'm
I
sure
use
you
that
do
one,
as well. And I think it's fair to say that typically our results are around a B.
Yeah.
B and sometimes A, if depending on the size of the site. I think that's sort of notoriously a WordPress problem, really, because there's so much bloat within WordPress anyway. But you can, if you know what you're doing, you can get into the back end and code, as we were talking about earlier, to really rip it all down to get A star for both. But I think it's a good thing. I think I wonder how they measure it though, because there's so many variables to a site loading time, right?
Yep.
Internet connection, or you want a mobile network, all of that kind of stuff. So if I'm in the back end of nowhere and I visit the Apple website, well, it still takes a week to load, even though it's an Apple website, right? So how are they going to measure that? I wonder if it's going to be...
I guess their tests will be from a consistent place or something, wouldn't they? Like, yeah, it's always like GT Metrics compares on a consistent baseline.
Well, doesn't GT Metrics compare based on the loading point at that time from the server you choose? Because you could argue that if at that point of running that test, there's 5,000 people on the website,
sure.
well, the results would be naff because the
It's
website's
ridiculous
under a
traffic,
lot of stress. So it'd be interesting to see how they do that.
I think ultimately it's going to be a good thing, right?
Of course, yeah.
And think of it the other way. They come back because the website's slow. We all fix it. They make more money because they have a better user experience.
Yeah.
Everyone's happy.
I think that's the resounding factor, isn't it? That Google ultimately wants to deliver the best experience. And if you're playing by the rules with how you're delivering your own experience, then everyone's a winner.
Exactly back to what we were saying earlier. It's not a new update from Google. They're now going to look at the speed of a website. They always have. They're just making it
more obvious to
bringing it
users.
more to the front. Yeah.
I think it's also a bit of a site play because eventually users will get used to it. So if you go on a website, if you're searching for brown shoes or whatever, and the first thing you see is red, you'll just bounce straight off it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think over time you will end up, everyone will basically have to be green, otherwise everyone's going to bounce off your site straight away.
Indeed. Moving on quick, you can do this one, Sam. Facebook is doing weird stuff again.
Yes. So they recently rebranded.
Yeah. I forgot about that. Did you see that?
There's a cool little
It basically looks like the same sort of Facebook logo, but with the colours of Instagram.
And a WhatsApp color sort of thing.
Yeah.
And the idea is to make a bit more obvious to people that WhatsApp and Instagram are owned by Facebook, and they're also trying to separate Facebook as a corporate entity from the actual apps and make it clear that there's a company called Facebook that owns all these apps, because a vast majority of Americans in particular didn't actually know that. Part of this as well, I think, is because of the scrutiny going on with Facebook and Zuckerberg, and there's a lot of calls in America to break them up, to break up WhatsApp and Instagram. I think the clever thing they're doing is that they're saying within the apps that it's from Facebook, so Instagram from Facebook, and you'll see that in Instagram. Now, I think in a world where the regulators actually break Facebook up, by that point, if it takes 2-3 years or whatever, everyone already knows that Instagram is from Facebook. So you can actually break the structure up, but the brand strength, the fact that everyone knows it's from Facebook means that regulatory, on paper, different companies, but everyone still knows it's from Facebook. So I think if it's a longer term player, I think it's still a win for them. I think they're basically protecting themselves a little bit by doing this. They've sort of done it and said, hey, we're doing this to be really, really clear and transparent because we want everyone to know who we are. But I think it's actually a bit more cynical than that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. When is it not?
It's all about money.
Won't they have to then do it again very soon? Because aren't they bringing together Messenger, WhatsApp, and Instagram DM all under one roof? So that's just going to mean another rebrand, another change.
Possibly. And they're still working on how to do that. And there's actually in the news, we'll talk about it in a second or two. There's a bit of an issue with that because
We'll finish it.
So long story short, when you send messages through Messenger, Facebook does actually read them. Well, it's
do you know what, can I just butt in? Because last night, Sam and I were talking and he'd broken his phone, or the screen had broken his phone. And we were talking about that through... It was
It was actually iMessage.
It was iMessage, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a bit weird.
That was weird. And then literally 5-10 minutes later, I was on scrolling through Facebook and an ad for a phone screen repair thing came. I was like, what the hell?
Someone's listening somewhere. Yeah. Something is going on.
But basically with Instagram DMs and Messenger, they're not encrypted, so Facebook can sort of filter out. And what they actually do, and I've got the stat here, they've got Facebook Messenger, the app alone, was responsible for 13 million reports of child abuse imagery in America. So they are filtering out people who are soliciting indecent images from kids and messaging kids like inappropriately through Facebook Messenger because it's unencrypted. If they merge the platforms together, they have to then make Messenger and Instagram DMs encrypted. That means they can't read all those messages. That means they can't tell, all the bad stuff going on. They can't see it and stop it, which raises a big ethical problem for them because just because they can't see it doesn't mean there aren't still weirdos messaging 12-year-olds trying to ask for weird pictures. So they've got a bit of a ethical dilemma going on over there.
Yeah.
As always, when you have that much clout.
Yeah, that much.
We'll do one more, just because I think it's relevant as well. We spoke about this previously in the past, Chris, but now it looks like it's definitely happening. Like counts have disappeared from Instagram.
Yes.
Well, not have disappeared.
They're disappearing.
Yeah. Starting where?
They've done it in a few countries. Canada, I think. Some of the
US next.
US is, I think, this week now. Basically, they've Adam Mosseri, who used to be in charge of News from Facebook, he's now in charge of Instagram as a platform. He's basically come out and said that I'll read it to you. It's a quote. First of all, they're trying to see how the effects of removing like counts makes people feel on the platform. How it affects how they use the platform, how it affects the creator ecosystem, and he's been spending a lot of time on this basically. So what this means is they spent a lot of time doing tests, trying to figure out, if they remove like counts, it's going to encourage creators to actually post more on Instagram. And they're trying to get rid of the fact that there's a lot of young kids who are 16 to 18 or whatever. They'll post something on Facebook, and if it doesn't get a certain amount of likes, not on Facebook, on Instagram rather, if it doesn't get a certain amount of likes within an hour or two, they delete that post. And it creates a lot of insecurity, and it leads to like anxiety and all that kind of stuff. And they're trying to combat this because they want people creating the content. That's why they copy Snapchat with the stories, and they want people actually posting on Instagram. So that's why they're removing like counts. And you'll still be able to see them. So if I post something, I can go on my Instagram and see it. But Ian, for example, can't go on my Instagram and see that this post got 70 likes and this post got 50 likes. And it's trying to erase that competition you have with yourself and with your friends, and seeing, they're getting those likes and those engagement on their stuff, and.
Well, will we be all really sad to hear? I read this morning that on that note, I think it was Nicki Minaj or maybe Cardi B will be leaving Instagram if they remove likes. What a crying shame that is.
I'm sure you will decide yourself about
who gives a shit? That's the news. So, Alan, can you tell us a little bit more? We spoke about it a little bit, touched on it earlier, link building. Can you tell us exactly what that is and what that process is and what it helps to achieve?
Yeah. So link building, I think you need to think of it again as in what is link building is more of a general term. So when you think of a backlink, you think, okay, it's a point from website A to website B back to me or what have you. there are lots of different types of links. So, the most common cheap, cheerful links that startup businesses like our Facebook friend earlier would probably do is get on all the local directories. Now, if you think of a directory, what tends to happen is you tend to be sat there with a whole manner of different people, and they're all in different industries, different sectors. The most common denominator is the link itself usually says something like, follow this link, visit website, find out more, visit us, that type of thing. Click here, all of these terms.
All the rubbish call to actions.
Yeah. Now, when you look at your anchor text, now just for those people out there that don't know what that is, it's the blue clickable word that takes you somewhere on the internet. We've all done it. We've clicked something, and before we know it, we've landed somewhere else, sometimes intentionally and sometimes not. The anchor text, the wording of that, Google does really judge quite heavily. So there, we talked about our fluffy friend algorithms earlier, and we talked about Penguin being one of them. When you think of link building, people always panic about the websites that are associated with you in ... You can't control, to a large extent, who links to you. It's just not possible.
Yeah.
If you think of big brands that we said earlier, Coca-Cola and what have you, anyone can link to them of their own choice. So what people tend to do is they Google and other search engines will pay more attention to the wording of the links themselves. So if you've got loads of click here and find out more, they're what we would refer to as a neutral anchor text. They're neither good nor bad. They're indifferent. So when you do link building, what you really want to be doing is getting your name out there in as many different places as you can. So if you think of getting your name out there in a digital world, a digital version of your name would be your web address. So www.https, name of your website. So when
Not in that order, though.
that would be a hell of a URL. So link building in a nutshell, a decent version, a nice healthy way of doing it would be to write decent quality content for a different website. Give them some value. Don't just pay someone 10 quid to put on a directory, because there's no value to that. Write some audience, take the Huffington Post, lots of different industry sectors, write something for their travel guide if you've got a travel client. Do something new. Don't just repeat the same gurge that you've had before. Talk about, the latest travel tips. Talk about something relevant. Talk about the new depths of Hayes Travel. Now they've took over Thomas Cook or something. Just be a bit different. Don't just the best top 5, the best top 10. And then when you've got that piece of content on someone's site, if you want to find out more about holiday trips abroad as a keyword, why not visit someone such as and have a link to the website instead? So Google play an awful lot of emphasis towards the branded versions of your anchor text. So if you can have lots and lots of different versions of your website address, your company name, who owns the company, who your bloggers are, all of that is much more healthier than shoving the keyword in holiday destination tours. In fact, the golden rule of thumb would be, if you were to imagine your anchor text ratios as a kind of a pie chart,
Yeah.
if you had your terms you were trying to climb for higher up in that list, you're almost definitely not going to rank for them at all, unless you've done something a little underhand or the competition is low.
And I just to confirm that, it's sort of like I said, it always used to be the way that as a web design company, for example, you put a link on people's site saying web design where we're based, sort of thing. Yeah, and then that's what you're getting as your anchor text. It's all those sort of keywords in there. But yeah, as Anna's saying, it's kind of all about your brand and building that up more than the actual keyword sort of thing, really.
I have some personal experience of how effective link building can be if you get your link on the right place. So years and years ago, when I first started out, I built myself a little website, and it was built using, at the time, a new product from Adobe. And I built that website, and somehow, it's because it was hosted with them as well via Adobe. I think at the time it was called Business Catalyst, their sort of hosting platform. Yeah. And they saw the website and they liked it and sort of emailed and said, can we feature your website as like a, design of the day, design of the week, whatever it was, built using our platform? Yeah, great, go for it. So I think it was a week or so later, that website that I built featured on the adobe.com website, and literally overnight, that website appeared right at the top of page 1 for website design locally. Literally overnight, just because obviously the domain authority of something like adobe.com is so big and so high that it just trumped everything else. So yeah, for a period, I was right up there just for that, off that one link.
So, I mean, that does back up what we said earlier about trust flow and citation and domain authority. It's all about being in the right neighborhood. So like I said, if you can go to our directory for a couple of quid or for free most of the time and to put yourself on there, but there's no value to the customer ultimately. It's just a localized thing to help with geolocation of little proximity for your Facebook friend earlier with his 1/2 mile visitors. But if you're going to do proper SEO and you want to get up there, you need to be attaching yourselves to a more credible site. So your link to Adobe, I mean, the link, what we would call link juice, the power from their website pushed back to yours, it's going to be so strong that ultimately you're going to dominate for quite some time for quite a lot of terms, I'd have imagined.
But the caveat and the downside to that is that, yes, there was loads of traffic and it was all great, but of course it was all irrelevant traffic because it was people from Adobe, like-minded people, designers, whatever, looking at the site for just that purpose to go, yeah, it's a nice website, and then leaving. So actually that screwed up all the analytics because the traffic was irrelevant. So you need to make sure that you're putting your link in the right places, even if it's a great link. And
I think the other thing to bear in mind as well is, and the other thing is, don't put too many eggs in one basket. So should Adobe decide that you're no longer flavor of the month, or if you decide to move on to a different platform, you're going to lose that link. So with link building, although it's quality over quantity, it used to be whoever, but Virgin probably at one point, I think, used to try and outbid Sky outbid Virgin, Pepsi outbid Coca-Cola, all that type of thing. But ultimately, that's the wrong way to do it. So it used to be whoever bought the most links was king in a nutshell. Right. And then it became the expression content is king. And you heard that badging around for a long time. And now it's user experience is king. But when it comes to exactly. Just literally link to decent sites, a relatively decent amount. We're not talking 2 or 3, but you don't need thousands. You just need good quality reputation.
I've got a weird question for you. And it's
can we keep it talking about search engine optimization and never mind your other weird questions?
It is actually. So a lot of time when I'm speaking to clients and they want to get to the top of Google. You might hate me for this, but I can't often say to them that there's almost no point to a certain extent. Now, bear with me on this, because if you imagine 80% of the traffic is coming from mobile, particularly, and if you're, for example, would take our brown shoes, you're searching for brown shoes, you type that into Google, the first thing you'll see is going to be ad results, the first few results anyway. Now, most people will probably click one or 3 of these ads, and that'll be it. So if you're organic, you're always going to be below the ads.
Okay, I've got a nice little one for that one. So most e-commerce sites we work on will do both. Why do they do both? 15% of click-through click on an advert.
You're right.
And then just under that, we'll click on a shopping. So a visual ad, like shopping
ads are quite good,
yeah, they're brilliant.
Yeah.
And e-commerce websites especially love them because, new dresses and proms and stuff like that. Yeah. But ultimately, if you were to ask 100 people, would they click on an advert? 85% of them would go down. So shopping's great because ultimately, if you think about it, you're only going to pay if you get clicked on. So why not open up, have an unlimited budget? As long as your cost per acquisition is good, if you click it and you buy the product, brilliant. It's not about the fact that you're going to convert better if you're on an advert or not. It's about the loss of traffic.
Yeah.
So actually, yes, you are below a paid advert, but still to most people will still click an organic listing above them.
Why do you think that is?
I think trust. I think most people still don't trust adverts to a large extent. Yeah. I think the only way that that's different is if you're a recognized brand. So if you're, Argos and you're selling your children's toy or something, or you're a random toy maker around the corner, you see an advert from someone you don't recognize, you'd be less inclined to click it.
Right.
But if you see them at the top of Google, you think, oh, they've got to be legitimate. They're at the top of Google. Whereas ultimately, they could just be working with one of us clever chaps who have put them to the top with link building and good SEO.
Doesn't that ultimately, Google is so secretive about algorithms and how to achieve results within search because it wants its results to be as legit as possible. So when people come to SEO experts to get their, frankly, naff website and naff service and naff offering to the top of page 1, when actually there's much better options available, isn't that sort of morally, isn't Google overlooking that? That's not right, is it really?
Well, no, but and also, if you think about it, if they've got a naff website and they come to me and they've got a rubbish website, I'll just tell them openly, your rubbish website will not get there. Why don't we either rebuild your website or why don't we try social media? Yeah. Or why don't we try a different approach? So I think we said earlier about what methods could we use? Sometimes with all the best will in the world, their website will be shocking. they've got no money, or they don't want to change it, or they're too emotionally invested in a site and aren't prepared to look at a different approach.
Right.
They're the times when a credible agency will just say, look, SEO is not for you. Have you thought about a different method? And then that's where social media might come in hand. You know, you can send them to a more bespoke platform for them.
You can bypass the website entirely.
But I think it's good that Google doesn't want naff websites at the top. You know, we talk about that traffic light in the news, and we talk about all different algorithms that they do. I don't want to waste my time on a rubbish website that boots me off or send me to crappy pages.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We've run out of time, guys. We're nearly an hour already.
Wow.
Well, we're going to do this over a couple of episodes anyway, because it's such a beast, SEO, and I've got loads more questions to ask. I want to focus a little bit around keywords and their relevancy. There's also some discussion around RankBrain.
Love it.
And Hummingbird, what's happened there when that released in, God, it was like 2013, wasn't it? That was the last major release, wasn't it, really? And how that's changed the face of search engine optimization. So
We haven't covered voice as well, and I've read
that's
a couple
also
of
that's
articles.
in there. That's in there. Voice search. Yeah. That's there. Episode 2. Say no more.
Okay.
So yeah, we want to cover a lot more. So it'd be great if we can get you back in.
Yeah, no,
again,
I'd love to.
at some
It's
point
fun.
soon, and we'll catch up with that. But thank you very much for coming in. How can we reach you? How can we get hold of Alan and Digitel? Should we need some SEO services?
So, I mean, literally the best thing to do is if you're in the local area, just Google digital marketing agency.
And you should be, if anything, right at the top.
And we've literally launched a new website yesterday.
Okay.
So it's pretty sexy right now.
At this point, Alan was meant to tell you all where you could find him, but we got distracted talking about way more interesting things. His web address is www.digi-tel.co.uk, and it'll also be in the show notes.
And I also just wanted to say, not on a sales pitch, but if anybody wanted a free audit of their website to give them hints and tips of things you can do to improve your on-site SEO, just get in touch with us via the Hit Publish website, and we'll send you an audit out.
So
You're gonna,
get some feedback.
am I right? Because we're slowly at the minute. We had our old website and slowly 301 redirecting over to the new one because it's a change of domain name.
Oh, okay.
So am I right in thinking that no matter how well we do it, we're gonna lose a bit of?
Well, just very briefly, then we talk about link juice.
Yeah.
So obviously about the fact you can push one thing to another. It's not the link juice. The link juice will go over. All the power from your website will transfer using appropriate redirects. The fact is your URL's changed. If you change the name, you've got to earn some credibility.
Yeah.
What I would do is push it over, do a little bit of SEO, do what we call naked URLs, send some power from external websites with the full URL of the new pages,
Mm-hmm.
and
Right.
just trigger it that little bit quicker.
Okay.
You can rely on naturally you'll get it all back, but depends how quick you want it.
Straight away.
Yeah,
yesterday. We don't always end. This is a new thing, actually. So it's only the second time. So ignore what I just said. With some quick fire top tips. Okay. So let's see how you do. It doesn't matter if you cock it all up because we'll just re-record it. And start
Okay.
again. So some quick fire questions. So it was Jonathan Pollinger who last done this. Gave some
Yep.
good top tips. He's a social media
know.
expert. You know, okay, cool. So for yourself, Alan, top 3 apps for analysing SEO performance.
Majestic, first one. That
Okay.
will tell you how good the backlink profile you've got is from an actual score.
Cool.
For all those people out there that now literally jump on there and have a look, don't panic if you don't score that well. It's between 0 and 100. I don't know many websites that score more than about 25.
Google doesn't even.
No,
itself
Google, I
is
think
like
68
98.
or
60. God.
the
wow.
.co.uk.
Oh, okay.
BBC are really good, but
Okay.
again, it's the BBC.
Yeah, indeed.
But so no, if you're under a score of 15 and go lower, then go down the page, it'll show you your anchor text charts that we talked about earlier. And if you've got loads of click here, find out more's, or you've got all of your terms in the top percentages, that's when you should probably call me because I'll clean it up. The second one I would say is SEMrush. Now that tool,
Yeah.
again, this is only my opinion, so don't hold me to ransom on it. I would use that as an indicator rather than much more than that. Gives you a good overview. I wouldn't necessarily trust the traffic stats too heavily, but I do like the idea of the trends. Gives you an idea of competition, keywords
Yeah.
to focus on.
Okay.
But ultimately, the last one, Google Analytics.
Of course.
If you've got it already set up, there's nothing better than actual traffic which is recorded.
I thought your third one might have been Moz. I thought let's assume people have got Google Analytics. Would you put Moz up there in amongst it?
I would put Moz somewhere.
I like it for the on-page stuff.
It's good for on-page. Yeah, I do
Yeah.
use it on every account, to be fair. So you've picked me up on one there.
Yeah.
Top 3 things to do on page or on your website that will have the biggest effect on your SEO efforts out the gate.
Top 3 things to put on the website? Okay.
On-page stuff, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, you need to answer this one.
Well, I guess, we'll jointly answer then, Alan. But I think, the getting your keywords distributed correctly on that page, so making sure it's clear for the user, and then that also works well then for Google.
Disclaimer, but not keyword stuffing.
Absolutely, no, that's absolutely the wrong thing to do. But making sure it's in the heading correctly. The pictures, you're telling Google what the pictures are about and that they're relevant. So I'd kind of go keyword density.
Shall I jump in on that one as well?
Yeah.
Then go back to you and do another one.
Yeah.
Keyword stuffing and all that jazz. What I would say is semantic text. So,
Boom.
Thank
Good
you.
man.
So different variables. A red car, a car that is red. Google understands that different versions mean the same thing.
Indeed.
So I would always say, don't worry about stuffing in there too much, but get it in there a couple of times. But do think of other reasons or other terminology people use, even slang or abbreviations. They help too.
Yeah. Nice. Next, I'd go for just the speed and we talked about it before, but speed and optimization of the technical elements of a site, making sure it's slick and user friendly.
Loads quickly.
All that sort of stuff really would be the next thing to do. Make sure it's optimized and cached. You haven't got massive pictures on there and all that sort of stuff.
Indeed. Last one, top 3 don'ts when optimizing.
Top 3 what?
Don'ts.
Top 3 don'ts.
Top 3
okay,
don'ts.
Don't shove the keyword in there. That's the key one to do. Don't have too many top level pages, nothing deeper. So people will often try and go for the very top search terms. So let's take a normal everyday business with a credible budget, but not stupidly big budget. I want to go for this keyword because it's got 150,000 searches a month. And have you got an appropriate page? No, not really. Okay, I want to go for these. Have you got an appropriate page? No, not really. Go for middle of the road terms that you can make a deeper, more relevant page on. Traffic might be slightly lower, conversion rates will be higher, you'll do better.
Good tip.
That leads into, I guess that leads into the architecture of a site sort of thing. So I guess Alan's covered that one. Don't sort of have it. Every page is a top level page, and blogs as well. Don't have blogs kind of fighting for the top level sort of same level as some of your main services pages.
Do you know what? Just another little, not a top tip, maybe like a baby tip.
Okay.
If there's such a thing. Loads of websites I analyze do their blog wrong. So think of your website as a kind of a family tree.
Are you about to talk about the URL structure?
Yeah. It should be website /blog / article title. Don't just literally have a blog that you go straight to blog, the homepage of the article title. It confuses Google. Just keep the structure right.
Good stuff. That's the top tips. Thank you very much again, Alan, for coming in. It's been great having you, and we'll get you in again to finish off this one. Thanks very much for coming in.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Join us next time for the second instalment of this 2-part episode, where we'll be joined by Alan once again to take a deep dive look into keyword optimization, the relevancy of keywords in today's SEO methods, how the release of the Hummingbird algorithm back in 2013 changed the face of keyword optimization, RankBrain and its focus on intent-based search, as well as the importance of voice search.
Thanks for listening, and we hope you enjoyed this episode.
If you did, please remember to subscribe if you haven't already. And most importantly, leave us a comment or review on Apple Podcasts, as it really helps us to bring you new episodes regularly.
If you've got something to say around digital marketing and would like to feature on a future podcast, please do get in touch in any of the usual ways.
You've been listening to Hit Publish with myself, Sam.
Me, Ian.
And me, Chris.